Go quickly and apologize to my mother for the sloppy table setting. Andre barked, his voice cutting through the festive chatter of my birthday celebration. I swallowed my pride and offered a calm apology, but with each word, I noticed Lyudmila Semyonovna, my mother-in-law, growing paler, her lips tightening as if my very presence offended her. Anna darted through the house with frenetic energy, like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. Today marked her 35th birthday, a milestone she approached with a mix of reluctance and quiet resignation. She hadn't anticipated this day with excitement. In truth, she'd have preferred a quiet evening, perhaps just with her parents. But Andrei, her husband, had other plans. He insisted on a grand celebration, a boisterous gathering filled with relatives, friends, and, inevitably, his formidable mother, Lyudmila Semyonovna. Anna paused to adjust the tablecloth, a pristine, lace-trimmed heirloom, a wedding gift from her own mother. It was flawless, much like her mother's taste, a stark contrast to the imperfections Anna felt surrounded her life. She sighed, brushing aside the nagging dread that crept into her thoughts. Today was supposed to be a celebration, her day, and she was determined to make it perfect. She circled the dining table, her eyes scanning every detail with meticulous care. The silverware was arranged precisely, forks on the right, knives on the left, each piece polished to a gleam. Wine and champagne glasses stood in neat rows, their delicate stems catching the light. Anna had learned these rules of etiquette from her grandmother, who had instilled in her a love for tradition and grace. Yet, no matter how perfect her efforts, Anna knew Lyudmila Semyonovna would find fault. She always did. The older woman had an uncanny ability to spot the tiniest flaw, to wield her criticism like a sharpened blade. In the kitchen, the oven hummed, releasing the warm, sugary aroma of Anna's homemade cake, a labor of love that had consumed her for 2 days. The sponge was light and fluffy, the frosting velvety and smooth, adorned with intricate fondant decorations that rivaled those of professional bakers. Anna allowed herself a small smile, picturing Andrei's reaction. He always admired her culinary talents, though he kept his praise muted in his mother's presence, as if afraid to challenge her authority. "Why are you scurrying around like a madwoman?" Andrei's voice startled her from behind. She turned to find him leaning against the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, his expression a mix of irritation and indifference. He was dressed in an old faded t-shirt and worn sweatpants, hardly the attire for a festive occasion. "I'm preparing," Anna replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "The guests will be here any minute." "Preparing," he scoffed, his tone laced with condescension. "You should have started by cleaning up this pigsty." Anna's chest tightened, a familiar spark of frustration igniting within her. Pigsty? She had spent the entire day scrubbing every corner of their apartment until it sparkled. The floors were spotless, the furniture dusted, the cushions fluffed. "I've cleaned everything," she said, struggling to keep her voice even. "I'm just making sure everything's ready." "Oh, really?" Andrei raised an eyebrow, pointing to a minuscule smudge of frosting on the countertop. "What's this, then? Blind?" Anna stared at the tiny speck, barely visible unless you were looking for it. She grabbed a damp cloth and wiped it away, her movements deliberate. "There," she said, her voice tight. "It's gone." "You need to be more careful," Andrei chided, his tone dripping with superiority. "Mother doesn't tolerate sloppiness. Mother doesn't like. Mother expects. Mother demands." Those words had become a refrain in Anna's life, a constant reminder of her inadequacy in Lyudmila Semyonovna's eyes. She was tired, exhausted, really, of living under the shadow of her mother-in-law's disapproval, of Andrei's unwavering loyalty to his mother's opinions over her own. "Andrei," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "It's my birthday today. Can we please, just for one day, skip the criticism?" "I'm not criticizing," he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "I'm just telling you how it is. If you did things right, I wouldn't have to say anything." Anna turned away, blinking back the tears that stung her eyes. She felt small, like a child scolded for a task done poorly, and on her birthday no less. "Fine," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "Whatever you say." She busied herself checking the cake in the oven, its golden edges just beginning to set. It needed only a few more minutes before she could add the candles, a final touch to her masterpiece. "Is the cake at least edible?" Andrei asked, his voice heavy with skepticism. "Or did you mess that up too, like always?" Anna bit her lip, refusing to take the bait. She didn't want to argue, didn't want to let his words ruin what little joy she could salvage from this day. She just wanted it to be over. Soon, the guests began to arrive, their voices filling the apartment with a lively hum. Anna's parents were the first to arrive, their arms laden with a vibrant bouquet of flowers and warm, heartfelt embraces. Their love was a balm, a reminder of a world where she was valued unconditionally. "Happy birthday, my darling," her mother said, kissing her cheek softly. "You're our pride and joy." Anna's throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered, fighting back tears. Then came Andrei's relatives, a boisterous group whose loud laughter and unsolicited advice filled the room. And inevitably, Lyudmila Semyonovna arrived, her presence like a cold draft. Her face was set in its usual expression of disapproval, her sharp eyes scanning the room for imperfections. "Hello, Aneshka?" she said, offering a perfunctory kiss on Anna's cheek, as if the gesture were a burden. "You look rather tired today. Overwhelmed, perhaps?" "Everything's fine, Lyudmila Semyonovna," Anna replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "Just a bit nervous, that's all." "Nervous?" Lyudmila Semyonovna's lips curled into a condescending smirk. "What's there to be nervous about? It's a simple matter of ensuring everything is proper and refined." Anna clenched her jaw, swallowing the retort that rose in her throat. Arguing with Lyudmila Semyonovna was like arguing with a brick wall. She was always right, and everyone else was perpetually wrong. As the guests settled around the table, complimenting the spread of appetizers and drinks, Anna played the gracious hostess, refilling glasses and offering smiles, though her heart pounded with mounting tension. She could feel Lyudmila Semyonovna's gaze, like a hawk circling for prey, searching for any flaw to pounce on. Anna braced herself, knowing criticism was inevitable. "What are these plates?" Lyudmila Semyonovna's voice cut through the conversation, loud enough for all to hear. "They're so ordinary. We have a beautiful china set with gold trim at home. Why wasn't it used?" Anna's face flushed with humiliation. That china set had been untouched for a decade, stored away in a cabinet because Andrei feared it might get damaged. "Lyudmila Semyonovna," she said, striving to keep her voice steady. "That set is very fragile. I didn't want to risk someone accidentally breaking it." "Fragile," Lyudmila Semyonovna snorted, her tone dripping with disdain. "It's a matter of knowing how to handle fine things. Or do you think we're all careless fools here?" Anna fell silent, the weight of every guest's stare pressing down on her. She knew this was only the beginning of the evening's humiliations. Andrei sat quietly, his eyes fixed on his plate, as he always did when his mother began her attacks. He was terrified of her, cowed by her domineering presence. During a toast, Lyudmila Semyonovna leaned over and whispered something to Andrei. Anna caught the exchange, saw Andrei's brow furrow, then watched as he cast a glance at his mother, his expression a mix of guilt and reluctant resolve. He cleared his throat and tapped his fork against his glass, drawing the room's attention. "Dear guests," he began, his voice carrying a weight Anna recognized all too well. Her stomach churned. She knew that tone, that look. Something painful was coming. "I'd like to say a few words," he faltered, glancing at his mother as if seeking her permission to continue. Lyudmila Semyonovna nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line of approval. "Mother has brought to my attention some shortcomings in tonight's arrangements," Andrei said, avoiding Anna's gaze. The word shortcomings hit her like a slap. She had poured her heart into this evening, spent hours ensuring every detail was perfect, and now it was being dismantled with a single careless remark. "In particular," Andrei continued, his voice flat, "Mother feels the table setting lacks sophistication, and the cake, well, it could have been better. Perhaps we should have ordered one from a professional." Anna's hands trembled beneath the table. That cake, her masterpiece adorned with fresh berries and crafted with love, was now dismissed as inadequate. Her vision blurred with unshed tears, but she refused to let them fall. "Mother is very disappointed," Andrei finished, finally meeting her eyes with a look of reluctant duty. "And I think you should apologize to her." The room fell into a stunned silence. Forks paused midair, conversations halted, and every pair of eyes turned to Anna, waiting for her response. Lyudmila Semyonovna sat erect, her expression triumphant, as if she'd won a long-fought battle. Andrei looked both guilty and afraid, caught between his mother's expectations and the weight of his words. Anna's parents exchanged a glance, their faces etched with concern and quiet anger. Anna opened her mouth to speak, but the words lodged in her throat, choked by a surge of humiliation and betrayal. She felt exposed, judged, and utterly alone in a room full of people. "Come on," Andrei urged, his voice impatient. "Just apologize to Mother. It's not a big deal." To him, it was simple. Apologize for her efforts, for not being enough, for failing to meet his mother's impossible standards. Anna took a deep breath, her heart pounding, and looked at Andrei, his defeated posture, his inability to stand up to his mother. Something inside her broke, a dam that had held back years of suppressed frustration and pain. She rose slowly from her chair, the silence in the room growing heavier, almost suffocating. Every guest watched, anticipating her next move. "Yes," Anna said, her voice steady and resonant, cutting through the tension. "You're right. I should apologize." Lyudmila Semyonovna's lips twitched into a smug smile, and Andrei let out a relieved breath, but Anna wasn't speaking to them. Her gaze swept across the guests, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. "I should apologize," she repeated, her voice growing stronger, "for spending years bending over backward to please you, Lyudmila Semyonovna, for trying to be the perfect wife for your son, knowing it was an impossible task, for staying silent when you criticized my cooking, my home, my choices, my very existence, for allowing you to meddle in our marriage and chip away at our happiness." Her words were like a flood, unstoppable now that the dam had burst. She felt no fear, no guilt, only a fierce clarity. "I apologize," she said, turning her gaze to Lyudmila Semyonovna, whose smugness was fading into shock. For not being born into wealth or prestige, for my parents being ordinary, loving people instead of influential figures like you, for never measuring up to your unreachable standards. Lyudmila Semyonovna's face drained of color, her confidence replaced by a flicker of unease. I apologize, Anna continued, turning to Andrei, her voice steady but laced with sorrow, for loving you, for believing in you, for hoping you'd find the strength to stand up to your mother and be the partner I needed, for being wrong about you. Andrei stood frozen, his face pale, his eyes wide with the realization of what was unfolding. And I apologize. Anna addressed the guests, her voice softening but resolute, for dragging you into this moment, for tarnishing your evening with this truth. But I can't stay silent anymore. I can't pretend everything is fine when it's not. She paused, letting her words settle over the room. In the eyes of many guests, she saw empathy, understanding, even quiet admiration. Some nodded subtly, their expressions conveying support. I apologize, Anna concluded, her voice ringing with finality, for living a life that wasn't mine, for betraying myself to fit into someone else's mold. But that ends today. The silence that followed was profound, thick with the weight of her words. I'm done apologizing, she declared, her voice a quiet but powerful decree. It was a verdict, not just for Andrei and Lyudmila Semyonovna, but for the version of Anna who had spent years trying to please others at the cost of her own happiness. Slowly, deliberately, she slipped off her wedding ring. The gold band, once a symbol of love and promise, now felt like a chain. She placed it on the table beside a slice of her lovingly crafted cake, now a bittersweet emblem of her unfulfilled hopes. No one moved to stop her. Andrei sat motionless, his face a mask of shock and dawning regret. Lyudmila Semyonovna, usually so commanding, seemed diminished, her eyes dull with defeat. The guests were silent, some averting their gazes, others watching Anna with a mix of awe and sympathy. Anna turned and walked out of the room, her steps heavy yet purposeful. With each step, she felt a strange lightness, as if shedding a burden she'd carried for far too long. Beyond the door, a new kind of silence enveloped her, not the oppressive quiet of fear, but the serene stillness of freedom. She moved down the hallway, passing framed photographs of her life with Andrei, moments that once seemed filled with love, but now felt like scenes from a play she'd been forced to perform. She paused at the hall mirror, catching her reflection. The woman staring back was no longer the timid, self-doubting Anna. In her place stood someone strong, determined, ready to reclaim her life. Anna left the apartment, closing the door on her past. As she descended the stairs, each step felt like a climb toward a new beginning. Outside, the spring air was crisp, infused with the scent of blooming cherry blossoms. She inhaled deeply, a genuine smile spreading across her face. For the first time in years, she felt free. Back in the apartment, the stunned guests broke into hushed conversations, their voices tinged with shock and judgment. I always knew Lyudmila Semyonovna would push her too far, one of Andrei's cousins whispered. You can't treat someone like that and expect them to stay. And Andrei? Another guest muttered. How could he let his mother humiliate her like that? He's always been her puppet, a third voice replied. It's no surprise. Lyudmila Semyonovna sat rigid, her face a mask of anger and confusion, her usual authority crumbling. Andrei remained silent, his head bowed, overwhelmed by guilt and the weight of his loss. He knew he had lost Anna, and he could only blame himself and his mother's unrelenting control. One by one, the guests left, their departures quiet and awkward, avoiding eye contact with Andre and his mother. The celebration was over, leaving only the wreckage of a broken marriage. The next morning, Anna packed her belongings, selecting only what mattered most: a few clothes, photographs of her parents, her favorite books, and a handful of cherished keepsakes. She left behind anything tied to her life with Andre, wanting no reminders of the past. Andre tried to stop her, his voice thick with desperation. He begged for forgiveness, promising to change, to shield her from his mother's influence. But Anna's resolve was unshakable. She had heard those promises before, and they had always been empty. "I'm sorry, Andre," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I can't live like this anymore. I deserve to be happy." She left the apartment for the last time, closing the door on a chapter of her life. Andre watched her go, his heart heavy with regret, knowing he had lost something irreplaceable. Anna returned to her parents' home, where she was greeted with open arms and unwavering support. They asked no questions, only offered love and comfort. "We always knew that place wasn't right for you," her mother said softly. "You deserve so much more. We're here for you, always," her father added. Tears of gratitude welled in Anna's eyes as she embraced them, grateful for their unconditional love. The weeks that followed were challenging. Anna felt adrift, grappling with the emptiness left by the end of her marriage. The life she had known was gone, and the future felt uncertain. But slowly, she began to rediscover herself. She realized that divorce wasn't a failure but an opportunity, a chance to rebuild her life on her own terms. She thought back to a dream she'd long buried: opening her own bakery. Baking had always been her passion, a creative outlet where she could lose herself in the alchemy of flour, sugar, and butter. Her cakes and pastries had always been a hit among friends, and she decided to take a chance on herself. Starting small, Anna began baking for friends and neighbors, taking orders for birthdays and small gatherings. Her creations were met with rave reviews. Her cakes were moist and flavorful, her pastries delicate and beautifully decorated. Word spread, and soon she had a steady stream of clients. For the first time, Anna felt a sense of purpose and pride in her work. Within months, she took a bold step and opened her own bakery, naming it Sweet Haven. The cozy shop, with its warm lighting and inviting aroma of fresh-baked goods, quickly became a local favorite. People came not just for the delicious treats, but for the sense of warmth and care Anna infused into every detail. Anna was thriving. She was doing what she loved, earning her own income, and building a life free from the constraints of others' expectations. She no longer feared judgment or sought approval. She was her own person, making her own choices, and it felt liberating. One quiet afternoon, Andre walked into Sweet Haven. Anna recognized him immediately, though he looked different, worn, older, as if the weight of his mistakes had aged him. "Anya," he said softly, "I need to talk to you." "I'm listening," she replied, her voice calm and composed. "I know I messed up," he said, his eyes pleading. "I know I lost you, and I'm so sorry." "You did lose me," Anna said, her tone gentle but firm. "But more than that, you lost yourself." "I want to make things right," he continued, his voice breaking. "I want you to come back." Anna looked at him, her heart softening with pity but not wavering. She saw his remorse, but she also saw the truth. She had outgrown the life they'd shared. I'm sorry, Andre, she said. That's not possible. I don't love you anymore. Andre's shoulders slumped, and he nodded, accepting her words. He left the bakery, and Anna felt a quiet release, as if the final thread tying her to the past had been cut. She felt no anger, no bitterness, only peace. Anna had let go of her past and was looking toward the future with hope and determination. She knew challenges lay ahead, but she was ready for them. She had learned the most important lesson of all, to love and respect herself, to never apologize for who she was or what she wanted. Anna's story spread through the community, becoming a beacon of hope for others, particularly women trapped in similar situations. She showed that even after years of sacrifice and humiliation, it was possible to reclaim one's strength and build a life of joy and fulfillment. The price of her endurance had been steep, but the freedom she gained was worth every moment of struggle. Anna was free,